Hello and welcome to my small guide on preparing your larger 3D objects for 3D printing. My name is Cade and I have worked closely with 3D models and 3D printers over the last 2 years, and I often found it challenging to print larger objects on the 3D printer because the print bed limited the scale of my prints and there was no easy way for me to create precise pieces of my model that could be easily reassembled to recreate the original object. Fortunately, by using Blender, there is a straightforward method to prepare your larger models for 3D printing. I found this method useful because it does not require much Blender knowledge and it can be easily scaled for 3D printers of any size. For this workflow, all you will need is a computer, your 3D model, Blender. I'm going to be using version 5.0, as well as the dimensions of your build plate. I also recommend having the 3D print add-on enabled. Let's get started. Welcome to the Blender Workspace. This is what you will first see when you open up a Blender project for the very first time. If this is the first time that you've ever opened a Blender project, you'll notice that your workspace will have populated with a camera, a mesh cube, and a light. For this workflow, we don't need any of that, so you can go ahead and select all of them and delete them. We don't need them. For this workflow, it'll be important for you to pay attention to a couple of key areas. First is the outliner in the top right of the screen. This is where the organization of your objects that you have in your workspace will be filed under, and you can manage the organization of them here. Immediately below is the properties pane. From here, you can view information about your object and apply modifiers. So when we start to interact with the mesh a little bit more, you can see all of that happening on this right pane here. Additionally, the snapping tool here, this will be another tool that we'll be working closely with. It's located in the top middle of your screen. This will be important for you to pay attention to as we progress through the workflow. If you want to be able to interact with the 3D print add-on that Blender has, you can view it by pressing N to reveal this little sidebar here and navigating to the little tab amongst the other tools that are available. You'll notice that mine looks a little bit grayed out at the moment. That's just because I don't have a mesh selected. If you do not see this, this means that you need to you need to enable the 3D print add-on from within Blender. So in order to do this, all you need to do is navigate over to the Edit tab, head on down to Preferences, and make sure that the add-ons option is selected. And then all you need to do is navigate or locate the 3D print toolbox add-on from the collection. There's also a search bar that you can search for it. And then all you need to do is enable the little checkbox and then likely restart Blender, and then it should work. And then in order to check to see if it's enabled, just hit N again and make sure that this 3D print tab is visible. All right, so now that we are all set up, we can start work on our model. For step 1 of this workflow, you need to add and orient your 3D object. I recommend that when you upload your 3D object, make sure that its orientation nicely conforms to the X, the Y, and the Z axis. This is because any lopsidedness that occurs here will translate to the final printed product. You're next going to want to add a mesh cube. This cube is going to conform to the buildable dimensions of your 3D printer. For this example, we can say that my build plate has a buildable dimension of about 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. So I will adjust the scale of the cube accordingly. And then you can, if you want to double check, you can use the ruler tool here, double check that it is 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. I've sometimes found it necessary to make the dimensions of the cube slightly smaller than the actual buildable area to reduce printing errors and jams, and this has saved room for any scaffolding to be built as well. You can also change the dimensions of this cube depending on what model of 3D printer you're using. So you can scale this up, scale this down as you please. Now it is time to determine the printable sections that you will have. Taking your cube that represents the building dimensions of your printer, encompass a section of your model. Any part of the model that is inside of this cube will become an individual print section. You will notice that my cube cannot fully encompass the 3D object, so I will need more than one cube. To create more print sections, all you need to do is select your cube and press Shift D to create a copy. To create perfect seams between your sections, align your cubes by enabling the snap tool here and making sure that the snap type is set to vertex. From there, all you need to do is just drag the pieces together such that their vertices align and the cubes are perfectly together with no seams. Repeat this process until the full extent of your model is inside of these cubes. If you want to see how your model fits within these cubes, all you need to do is press Alt-Z to get an X-ray view of your workspace. Also, if you happen to make a mistake, you can always press Control-Z to undo the latest action. So for me, it looks like I need to translate my cubes down just a little bit more. Oops. Make sure that for this, snap is not enabled. And then I can take this top cube here, duplicate it again, and then align it to the previous cube. There we go. And then a benefit of using this X-ray tool is that you're able to view the various print sections and how they will appear. If I'm not happy with the fact that this print section is going to kind of bisect the neck and the handles of this amphora, I can always select my cubes and then translate them down just a little bit more. And then I can use the X-ray view to see how each section of my print is going to come out in the end. And once I am happy with this result, I can move on to the next step. In the third step, you will combine the dimensions of the cubes with a geometry of the 3D object to create new mesh geometries that will become your printing sections. With your desired print dimension cubes selected, go to the Modifiers tab, indicated by this blue wrench icon, and select Add Modifier, Generate Boolean. Set the Boolean operation to intersect, and for the object, select your original 3D model. The result is a model with a clean cut along its edges with the other cubes. Importantly, it keeps the model watertight, which is important for 3D printing. So you'll see from this single operation, I was able to essentially create a new geometry that conforms to the dimensions of my build plate, but also the mesh geometry of my original object. So if I turn off the original object here, and I turn off the other cubes, I'm left with an object with a clean cut along its top that perfectly intersects with the other cubes. So in order to complete this step, all I need to do is repeat this process. Again, I go to Add Modifier, Generate Boolean, Intersect, and then I select my original object. And then I will repeat that again one more time. And then I can turn off the original object. And then you can see how I have three distinct pieces here. I've separated my model into three pieces with nice flat edges. So my pieces that I will eventually 3D print will fit nicely together. If you are working with complex models or need to check your final product for holes that may render your print file unusable, you can use the 3D print tool to double check your print sections will work. In order to get to the 3D print section, all you need to do is press N, go down to the 3D print tab, and then make sure that your desired print section is selected, and then all you need to do is press volume. If you get a result, that means your print section will work as a 3D print. It is completely watertight and there's no holes in it. If you don't get a result, your model is not watertight. And so you may need to apply an additional modifier to each printing piece to make sure that it will work. And this modifier is the Remesh Modifier. What it will do is create a new mesh geometry based on an input mesh, and it will close up any holes and make sure it is a nice, solid, watertight piece that you can print. In order to do this, go over to the Modifier tab if you're not there already. Click on Add Modifier, Generate Remesh. I recommend setting it to Smooth, and I like to have an octree depth of 8. I've found that it provides a high enough resolution of the original model without making too many new surface polygons. However, if it's not high enough resolution for your needs, you can always up the octree depth, but I would not go further than 10 or 11 unless you uh, want to bog your computer down and maybe risk crashing. I've never gone above 11 for any of this. But it's very simple. All you need to do is add that modifier, and it'll be one whole geometry. Once you are happy with your various print sections and are able to export them in various 3D file formats according to your needs, then that is the end of this method. So I hope that you found this video useful. Hope you were able to learn something. And all I gotta say is happy printing.